In 1997, Apple was 90 days away from collapse. Not decline, not slow down, collapse. Banks were preparing for its failure. Employees were quietly leaving, and the world had already moved on. Today, Apple is worth more than most countries, and somehow, it controls how you think, what you desire, and what you believe technology should be. So the real question isn't how Apple survived. The real question is this: how did a company that almost died turn into a belief system? And more importantly, what did it cost to make billions of people believe? This is not a story about processors, screens, or operating systems. This is not a tech story. This is a human one. Because Apple didn't just build products. It built meaning. It built identity. And quietly, it built obedience. This is the origin of Apple, and the psychology behind the most powerful brand on earth. Long before Apple became a company, it was an escape plan. Steve Jobs didn't grow up dreaming of building an empire. He grew up trying to understand why he didn't belong. Adopted at birth, emotionally intense, obsessive, uncomfortable with authority. He wasn't searching for success. He was searching for control. Control over chaos, control over imperfection, control over a world that felt wrong. And that obsession with beauty, simplicity, and absolute control would later shape everything Apple touched. Most companies are born from opportunity. Apple was born from dissatisfaction. Jobs didn't want to compete with the world as it was. He wanted to redesign it. And that desire to redesign reality itself is not a business instinct. It's a psychological one. When Apple released its early computers, they weren't the most powerful. They weren't the fastest. But they felt different. They felt friendly. They felt human. They felt chosen. And people didn't buy Apple because it made sense. They bought it because it felt right. That was the moment Apple stopped being a company and started becoming a symbol. But symbols are dangerous things, because once people believe in a symbol, they stop asking questions. As Apple grew, the world split into sides. On one side, logic, compatibility, openness. On the other, Apple. Closed, controlled, curated. Apple didn't sell freedom, it sold certainty. And in a chaotic digital world, certainty was irresistible. But while Apple was winning hearts, it was losing power. And inside the company, something was breaking. Steve Jobs didn't lose Apple because he failed. He lost Apple because he demanded too much, too perfect, too intense, too uncompromising. The board didn't see a visionary, they saw a liability. And in one of the most ironic moments in business history, the man who created Apple was pushed out of his own company. The belief system rejected its originator. Without Jobs, Apple didn't collapse immediately. It slowly lost its soul. Products multiplied, identity blurred, purpose disappeared. Apple was alive, but no one believed in it anymore. And belief, once broken, is harder to restore than profit. What happens next would redefine not just Apple, but how humans relate to technology itself. Because when Steve Jobs returned, he didn't come back to save a company. He came back to rebuild belief, and this time, he would demand something in return. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple, he didn't walk into a company. He walked into confusion. Too many products, too many directions, too many compromises. Apple wasn't failing because it lacked technology. It was failing because it lacked belief. And Jobs understood something most CEOs never do. People don't follow companies. They follow clarity. Jobs did the unthinkable. He cut almost everything, dozens of products, gone, entire teams, eliminated, years of work erased. Not because they were bad, but because they were unnecessary. This wasn't efficiency, this was control. Jobs believed choice was not freedom, choice was noise, and by removing choice, he made decisions for people. People didn't resist, they felt relieved. The iMac wasn't revolutionary because of what it did. It was revolutionary because of how it looked. Colorful, transparent, playful. At a time when computers felt intimidating, Apple made one that smiled back at you. And something subtle happened. People didn't say, "This computer is powerful." They said, "This computer is me." Apple wasn't selling hardware anymore. It was selling identity. Humans are tribal creatures. We don't just buy objects, we join groups. Apple understood this before social media ever existed. Owning a Mac wasn't about productivity. It was about belonging to a certain kind of person, creative, different, enlightened. And once identity enters the equation, logic leaves. Then came the iPod, not the first music player, not the cheapest, not the most open, but it promised something no competitor dared to promise: your entire world, in your pocket. Apple didn't sell storage, it sold intimacy. Music wasn't just sound anymore. It was memory, emotion, control, and Apple put its hands on all of it. With the iPod came the ecosystem. Buy from us, sync with us, stay with us. And people did, not because they were forced, but because leaving felt wrong. Apple didn't trap users, it comforted them. And comfort is more powerful than force. When the iPhone arrived, it didn't just replace phones, it replaced habits. Touch, swipe, scroll. Apple didn't change technology, it changed how humans interact with reality. The phone stopped being a tool, it became an extension of the self. And Apple became the gatekeeper. Apple told the world, "We protect you." From viruses, from complexity, from yourself, and people agreed. Because safety feels like love, but protection always comes with rules, and rules shape behavior. By now, Apple wasn't just a company, it was a system, a closed world, a curated reality. And as Apple's power grew, so did the cost of perfection, because the same control that creates beauty can also erase choice. And that's where the story turns darker. Every belief system has a shadow. For Apple, that shadow was perfection. Because perfection is never gentle, it demands sacrifice. As Apple rose to dominance, its obsession with control didn't disappear, it expanded. And the cost of that control was quietly pushed out of sight. Inside Apple, failure wasn't tolerated. It wasn't corrected. It was erased. Teams worked in secrecy. Employees were isolated from each other. Information was locked down. Not because Apple didn't trust the world, because it didn't trust its own people. Fear became part of the process. And fear, when combined with genius, creates extraordinary results. But it also breaks humans. Far from Apple's glass buildings and clean stages, another world existed. Factories, long hours, impossible deadlines. Devices that felt magical in your hand were built under conditions that felt anything but. Apple didn't invent global manufacturing abuse, but it perfected distance. Distance between the product and the pain behind it. And distance makes guilt easy to ignore. Most users didn't want to know, because knowing would ruin the experience. Apple understood this deeply. If the product feels perfect, people assume the process must be too. And so the belief system protected itself. Silence became part of the design. As Apple's ecosystem tightened, freedom slowly shrank. No customization, no access, no alternatives. Apple decided what was allowed, what could be installed, what could be repaired, what could be changed. And people accepted it because convenience feels like care. But convenience always asks for something in return. At some point, leaving Apple stopped being a choice. Photos were trapped, messages were locked, memories were stored inside a system that didn't let go. Apple didn't need to trap users. Users trapped themselves. And that is the most powerful form of control. By now, Apple wasn't competing anymore. It was deciding what innovation looked like, what design meant, what premium felt like. Other companies followed, consumers adjusted, and the world slowly reshaped itself around Apple's definition of reality. Power is most dangerous when it no longer feels contested. Apple wasn't hated, it was admired, and admiration dulls resistance. When a company reaches this point, it stops listening, because it no longer has to. But no empire, no matter how polished, is immune to time. Technology shifts, culture evolves, belief systems weaken, and just as Apple seemed untouchable, something began to change, something Apple couldn't fully control. For a moment, it looked like Apple had reached the end of evolution. Innovation slowed, surprises faded, critics grew louder. The world changed faster than Apple expected. Artificial intelligence, open platforms, new competitors that didn't care about Apple's rules. For the first time in years, Apple wasn't defining the future. It was reacting to it. Belief systems age. What once felt revolutionary can start to feel restrictive. Apple's greatest strength, control, began to look like hesitation. And the question quietly formed, can a company built on perfection adapt to a world that values speed? Or does control eventually become a cage? Regardless of what comes next, Apple has already rewritten history. It taught humans to expect beauty, to demand simplicity, to believe technology should feel human. Entire industries followed. Design changed, marketing changed, even how we communicate changed. Apple didn't just sell devices, it redesigned expectations. But expectations are heavy things. When a company defines the standard, it also inherits the blame. Every missing feature feels intentional. Every delay feels personal. Every compromise feels like betrayal. Belief is fragile, and once questioned, it never returns in the same form. Apple's story isn't really about technology. It's about us, about our desire for meaning, our fear of complexity, our willingness to trade control for comfort. Apple didn't force itself into our lives. We invited it. Because belief feels better than uncertainty. Every empire begins as an idea, but every idea eventually asks for a price. Apple asked for loyalty, for trust, for dependence, and most of us paid willingly. Not because we were fooled, but because we wanted to believe. So the question isn't whether Apple is good or bad. The question is simpler. When a brand becomes a belief, who controls who? And the next empire might not announce itself. It won't ask for permission. It won't sell products. It will sell belief. And it might already be watching you.